This podcast is a proud member of Pod Nation Media Network. Are you tired of the coffee crash? Still jittery an hour after your morning cup of coffee? Listen, I used to drink 5, 6, 7 cups a day to just keep going. The anxiety, the stomach pains, the afternoon crash, it was brutal. Then I discovered Rise Coffee, and everything changed. Rise has less than half the caffeine as regular coffee, but here's the magic. It contains 6 organic mushrooms, including cordyceps, lion's mane, and others that naturally sustain your energy without the jitters or crash. We're talking sharper focus, immune support, better gut health, and calm, sustained energy that lasts all day. Plus, it's organic, vegan, and has 0 added sugars. Unlike other mushroom coffees, Rise is USA grown in California. A full spectrum of mushrooms per serving that actually works. Here at Pod Nation, we only partner with brands we actually believe in. And Rise Coffee is the real deal. Head to risesuperfoods.com and use promo code PODNA15 for 15% off your order. That's PODNA 15 for 15% off. Ditch the crash. Fuel your day the right way with Rise Coffee.
I see ghosts, specters all around me, living in stock, blazing the dark. One by one, pictures gather around me. Where those moonflowers used to rust no more. Specters gather around here, living in stock, blazing the dark. Night by night, stare into the black where moonflowers used to grow.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, here trying to make the world seem a little more normal. Does it ever work? Nah, who we joking at this point? Who the fuck we kidding? But, as always, on this perilous quest, I bring a guest with me to help me try. Like I said, it doesn't work. But my guest tonight is Cyndi Maurer, who is a Ph.D. Sorry, I got to throw that in there. But she is a clairvoyant, a psychic, an energy worker, and so much more. But we're going to get into all that tonight. Hell, we might even get into some 90s kid TV. You'll see what I'm talking about later. But maybe. But how you doing tonight, Cyndi?
I'm great. Thank you for that, Jeremy. And don't worry, I forget I have a PhD 90% of the time. So you're just matching that energy.
No, if I had a PhD, I'd be announcing that. I'd freaking wear a name tag every day that said PhD.
I do correct when people call me Ms. Maurer. I'm always like, it's actually doctor. And I get 50-50 on whether people are like, why are you correcting me? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And when people are around and I don't correct, then other people correct them for me. So
I feel it's like it's a Sheldon Cooper type of thing you got to do. Like,
yes, it is.
So, Cyndi, the question I like to start every show off with is, what brought you down this spiritual side of life, especially with a doctorate? Yes, I've interviewed a lot of doctors on here before, but with all the different spiritual aspects. Okay, why am I talking? I'm going to let you talk.
No, I love hearing how people talk about me. And I love hearing how people interpret the different things that I say about myself. So feel free, but I'm happy to tell my story. I have been psychic since I was a kid. I just didn't know it. And I was kind of that kid that knew things about people, would make off the wall comments that adults did not appreciate because nobody wants a kid spilling their tea. And I was always kind of fascinated by all things spirituality, like tarot cards, Ouija boards, etc. But I had a very Catholic mom who wouldn't allow any of that in the house. Both my parents were actually Catholic. And when I was in my early 20s, The Secret had just come out and it kind of re-spurred this energy spirituality thing. I'm in Northern California and several of my friends from high school had gone to a place called the Berkeley Psychic Institute in Berkeley, California. And they were like, oh, you should go get a reading. You're going to love it. And I was like, okay. So I get a reading and here I have, I think it was 4 people sit in front of me and tell me things about my life that there was no way anybody had any idea. This was probably 2007 or 2008. So this is yes, we had Facebook, but it was very minimal. And prior to that, I had a few tarot readings or a few experiences with professionals. And after that first reading, I was like blown away. I actually, this past summer, came across my email I had sent to my friends. And like, I looked back at it and having no idea of like 90% of the things I was talking about. Fast forward a few months after that, and I have a ton of library books about the occult and about energy work and tarot. And I was living with my grandfather, and we were coming upon holiday season, and he tells my parents at the dinner table, your daughter's getting into the occult, which has me like looking at him going, what are you talking about? And my dad pulls me aside after dinner and he's like, are you serious about this? And I said, yeah, I went over to BPI. I had a reading and I think I really want to take some classes and like better understand how to like deal with this. And my dad's like, oh, well, there's a place slightly closer. I've been taking intuitive training classes for the last year. It's the exact same curriculum. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you didn't tell any of your children that you were taking an intuitive training program. My dad has since passed, so I feel okay putting him on blast. And I got into my meditation center, started the intuitive training program, and realized I'd been doing this my entire life. I'm fascinated by human behavior. I've always noticed patterns in how people act and how they're going to respond to stuff. I've always been interested in motivation. And when I got into my classes, I was like, oh, this is a skill. I could teach anybody this. I ran with it and went down all the crazy rabbit holes of off-planet stuff and deep in the earth stuff and spirit guides, past lives, everything. And then fast forward to now, and it's kind of a mix. Like you said at the beginning, it's kind of a mix of everything. And when I was 5 or 6, I said I wanted to get my doctorate. I was the first person in my family to go to college. And so like I do have this interesting combination of academia where I studied a lot of qualitative research, ethnography, anthropology, combined with like this spiritual energy training, intuitive training. So it's like it is an interesting mix. I'm not going to lie.
It is. I mean, it's a mind-boggling mix. And see, it's one of the stereotypes of this show, almost like one of the entropies that religious parents are usually, well, it's a little different for you actually, because usually religious parents are the downfall of why it takes people so long to get into their spiritual side and awaken. But seems like your dad seemed pretty damn cool about it actually.
He was. And my mom to this day has only ever asked me twice about my skill set. And the one that's most profound is when my dad was passing, he went into a medically induced coma. He had dementia and it was what needed to happen. And she just looked at me and said, is he in there? And I said, no. And that made the entire process easier for her. She's still quite skeptical. She gets mad if I bring cards into her house. I'm like, Mom, they're pretty pictures on cardstock. Like they're no different than your playing cards. But she does still get angry at me, which I find really amusing. But in general, I didn't grow up Catholic. My parents grew up in such deep Catholicism that they didn't raise me and my siblings in Catholicism, which honestly feels great because I see that all the time with clients. I don't need to work that within myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually cool because I know so many people I've talked to that their parents still will not like talk to them because they're doing this now because it goes against every little stupid thing they stand for. And I'm just like, really? Like you don't want your child to be happy and free. You want your child to just follow your footsteps for the rest of your life. Like, come on.
Pretty much. I mean, honestly, pretty much. I've got those clients for sure that are they have very contentious relationships, or I went through classes with those people. And the one thing I'll say is you can't change someone's mind if they're not ready to have their mind changed. And I just really hope people can be open-minded, even though I know that's not the case.
Yeah, open-mindedness is never an easy thing. I mean, it really isn't for people. So, gotta ask, what's the next step after you realize you're okay, what's your doctorate in? I don't recall if you said it, but I'm kind of curious, like what your doctorate's in.
No, you're super, super fair. So I did kind of skip over A plus B. So I started my intuitive training program. I had already applied to go to grad school. I was in pursuit of either a doctorate in anthropology or in what I actually got it, which is childhood studies. So I've worked with kids my entire life. I'm a Nickelodeon kid, kind of like you mentioned. We can talk about 90s kids media, and I'm here for it all day, every day, evidenced by my beautiful collection of 80s and 90s media. And I applied, got into a program at Rutgers University in New Jersey, paused my intuitive training, pursued my doctorate for 5 years, still kind of dropping in when I would come back to California, take a class here. At that time, we were doing classes like on Skype, kind of. Zoom did not yet exist, and Zoom has changed the face of energy work, in my opinion. And when I got into studying, I got really into academia, and I knew immediately I did not want to stay here. And I love qualitative research. I love ethnography. I love learning about cultures. I love observing. I love asking people super crazy questions. And when I finished my program, I moved back to California to finish out my doctorate, and I jumped right back into my training. And I realized really quickly that all this work I had done in grad school, doing ethnography school in Guatemala, taking all these qualitative classes, working with kids, because kids are, in my personal opinion, like the best humans to like have conversations with because they have zero filter. It all kind of came together, and using both my academic skill set when I'm working with clients, but also my intuitive skill set. And I work with such a wide range of clients. Like I work with fellow practitioners that are super woo, and we talk about off-planet stuff, and we talk about interdimensional stuff and multiverse theory, all the way to people where like I am the first person they're sitting down of this type of caliber or this type of experience. So my language kind of adjusts with whoever I'm in front of. And I feel like a big part of that is just all of my formal education versus the intuitive education, which helps me actually get into whatever we're talking about or looking at or whatever the energy is.
All right. Which, I mean, I could kind of, I'm trying to form the connection I have between childhood studies and
so the childhood studies part is just growing up. I felt really strongly that kids had voices. I'm a Nickelodeon kid. Like I said, I remember Nickelodeon's Bill of Rights for Kids. I remember like voting for the president. And so working with kids is really, really important to me. Being psychic is separate from that. However, I do actually work with a lot of kids now that show psychic skills or are highly empathic or have emotional dysregulation. So like I do bring it back to the childhood studies and family. And my focus was kids media and culture, kids media and play. And like that doesn't necessarily play a role in the work that I do, but my fascination with Nickelodeon and Disney as kids media culture companies does actually get some I read it energetically from time to time, especially when I look at generational energy, because that's one of my current favorite like niche things to look at like the boomers energy versus Gen X versus millennials. And that does directly tie back to my degree and education there. But no, they're pretty separate. They inform each other, but like I would not recommend anybody else do this unless they had these very natural tendencies and natural desires to work with like these types of people.
Of course. Makes sense. And I mean, I can see the connection, though. It definitely, there are kids out there with abilities that need someone to foster them and help them get to the point where they can function with these abilities without, because, you know, you give a teenager, X-Men shows this, but you give a teenager any abilities and they're going to misuse them somehow or some form. I mean, it's just the way it goes. It's just the way it goes. But,
well, and sorry to interrupt you, but like to actually add like the facet that really connects them is, you are in a male body. I'm assuming you are not a junior high girl. Junior high girls are vicious, and we are extra mean if we have this extra skill set. And when I was in junior high, I was always at the center of the drama, but I was never causing it. I would be like, so-and-so is mad at you, Jeremy, because of this. So now that you know this, you can go fix the problem, which like junior high girls, that like exasperates it 100 times over. So a lot of the girls in particular that I work with, it is about how do you know what's yours to manage versus what's the world's. And then back to your point about like, you'll use your powers for bad. I work with a 17-year-old and I've worked with him since he was 13. And I would say he's never used his powers for bad. Like he's never used his clairvoyance or ability to have communication with spirit or see things other people aren't seeing for bad necessarily. However, we have talked about times that he is intentionally throwing some energy at someone, or he is intentionally looking for something to try to, you know, be persuasive or something of that nature. And we have our own ethical rule between the two of us of like what's acceptable and what's not. But I agree with you, like, especially an unchecked skill or an unchecked power that you don't have anybody around you. Like, I try to be the adult I wish I had had when I was these kids' ages, because I know my life would have been really, really different if somebody would have said, that's actually a skill. Let's take 10 minutes and teach you how to like learn what's yours. And let's teach you how to like use this for quote unquote good or neutral.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're basically the Professor X of these kids, which I freaking love. If you can't tell, I'm a huge X-Men fan, but I love that fact that you're doing this, and it's awesome. It really is. So, do you only work with kids, or do you work with adults as well?
The majority of people I work with are adults, and they're a range from like fellow practitioners all the way to, I work with a coach and I work with all of her clients that come in, and they tend to be more from the corporate world. And so I kind of work with a range, men and women, all ages. The youngest I work with right now is 7, and that's typically like my preference for the younger age is 8, because I feel like 3rd grade, which is 8, is a good time to start getting them used to being on Zoom for like 20 or 30 minutes. The 7-year-old I work with, her 2 older sisters. And then I think my oldest client is probably in their 70s. If I had to guess, I don't ask everyone their age, but I work with all genders, all ages, all socioeconomic statuses, like all around the world. I have clients like outside of the US because Zoom is wonderful. And this is where Zoom is, if you're an energy worker, Zoom is the superior app to use, because we have theories, like either they have people on their team that are psychic and they don't know it, or they are intentionally working some of the energy to make it possible. Because if I jump on Google Meets, I'm kicked out in like 5 minutes. I jump on Zoom, I'm completely fine. I jump on Skype, it just kind of depends who I'm talking to. So Zoom makes it possible for me to do the work anywhere in the world as well.
It's kind of interesting that these different browsers, these different programs have that much of a difference. I mean, I never heard anybody else talk about that.
I was curious. Sorry, I keep interrupting. That's my like one of my worst habits. I was curious like what platform you were using, because I have a podcast and we use Squadcast, and we've used it since we started the podcast, and they were bought out by somebody, and we started looking at other ones, and I was like, listen, we've worked the energy of this company for 4 years. Like, I am not interested in changing platforms, and I'm going to stick with this. And I've been on a few other podcasts, and it's always interesting to see whether there's one in particular, and I can't remember what he used, where it didn't even render my recording at the end. He had to go off of like the dual recording, which is like never ideal for audio clarity. So yeah, energy directly impacts these apps, and nobody talks about it because nobody thinks about it unless you live in this world, and then you're only talking about it amongst your peers and your friends that work in tech. And then you're like, hey, can you like talk to your like engineers about grounding and stuff? And weirdly enough, tech is actually really open to energy work and really open to psychic work.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird you say that though, because I was actually recording with someone on Zoom the other day, and literally on Zoom, like it wouldn't record the video or the audio, like it wouldn't record, like it just stopped working.
Yep, I get that. I had to switch to all Apple products. At the time, I didn't know why, but I was like, well, this just seems easier. And then I discovered how Apple products were being made versus how PCs were being made, and all the different like people that touch the different components. And I find like with PC stuff and Windows stuff, I will crash every computer in a matter of a couple minutes. And then also super interestingly, I decided to get a hybrid car, and I have a friend that has an all electric, and there's also an energetic component to that as well. Now, is that a bunny or a cat?
That is our mascot, Snickers.
Hi, Snickers. How old is Snickers?
Snickers is 4 months old.
Oh, Snickers is really cute. I love that you have a mascot.
Yeah, well, daughter's pet / mascot, but yeah, she likes to bring him out and have me show him off to everybody because he's so cute.
Yeah, because he's adorable. I don't blame her. I'm actually allergic to bunnies, weirdly enough.
No. Don't need him going back on my computer, thank you. But
she just wants him to be TikTok famous.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Drive me nuts. But so yeah, I mean, because like the Zoom wouldn't record. We ended up re-recording on Zoom again, and it worked. I mean, we were actually joking around, like, wonder if the spirits in my house are stopping us from doing this, because we were talking about them, and all of a sudden, like, the Zoom stopped working. So it was weird. I totally get that. It's just kind of the synchronicity of that we happened to talk about that like a week after that happened. I was like, maybe there was something to that. Maybe it wasn't just a joke.
Not a joke, because one of the first classes I ever took online had to do with female sexuality, and we were using Skype. And I kid you not, we all got kicked off so many times that night. And our teacher afterwards was laughing so hard, and she's like, some topics are just a lot of energy. And even now in the last few years, like post during lockdown and post pandemic, when I was pretty active in my meditation center, like teaching and assisting, we would have certain topics that would just crash, like people's computers would just get crashed or whatever. And it's energy. I mean, it's no different than the physical part. It's just you're not seeing the physical part.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay. I would have a whole nother conspiracy about the female sexuality part and say that it's certain incel government people that don't want that to happen, but that's my conspiracy side. So
that's fair. And there was like, I think 8 people in the class. So that's a pretty high intensity for a very small group of women that to this day are not on national stages. But I would agree with you. There is definitely some additional attention to that topic.
Probably. I mean, but I've had enough of them on here to know that they don't shut down. They never shut me down for anything. I never had any problem with StreamYard not working for me. So,
good.
No matter who. And I've talked to some of the most powerful psychics you ever could meet. So,
yeah, no, if it's working, like, I mean, you're also doing a paranormal show, so I assumed whatever platform you're using has to be working for you. Otherwise, you would have switched by now anyway.
I started off with Zoom, and I knew other podcasters who used StreamYard, and StreamYard was just so much more easier to use, like, and so much more enjoyable to use. Zoom was a lot of work to go back and forth, and like just posting out the links and everything was just a pain in the it only lasted a couple weeks, and eventually I switched to StreamYard, and I've just been happy since with it. But it makes sense that like apps would have that energy thing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you like to explore the energy differences between like boomers and millennials, and as a millennial myself, I hate to admit it because I'd rather be a Gen Xer. But
are you an elder millennial? Are you born before like 84?
No, I was born in 88. I'm like,
you're smack dab in millennial.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I hate being put in that freaking class. I really do. But but what are some of the differences you notice, like between boomers and millennials and Gen Xers and all that good stuff?
So I am also a fellow millennial. I also resist the moniker. All of my siblings are Gen X, so I'm technically a Zennial or an elder millennial, where a lot of my media is actually Gen X. So I spend a lot of time looking at millennials, and I work with a lot of all ranges. I would say predominantly Gen X and millennial, and I'm just starting to work more with Gen Z and then a few boomers. In general, what I have found with boomers and millennials in particular is boomers energetically responded to millennial kids in such a way that the majority of us are super programmed to be people pleasers. We don't understand how to rest or relax. We don't understand how to not do something that's not productive. And anybody could argue that these are things that like we witness, and we can see research, and we can see like qualitative data and quantitative data that like prove that. But when you look at it energetically, what happened is, in my opinion, boomers had such a hands-off upbringing and parents that were super uninvested in them as kids, and they were basically becoming adults at really young ages, that they swung the pendulum so far the other way. And for whatever reason, millennials, part of many of our agreements to come into the families that we came into were to be healers. And so in that pendulum swing the other way, we weren't given space to say no. We weren't told that no was ever an option. We always had to say yes. We always had to show up. We went to school sick. We accepted the 2XL t-shirt when we were 8 years old and said, yeah, this was a great present. Thanks, Uncle whoever. John Mulaney has like a great bit on that, by the way, and it always makes me laugh, where he makes a reference to like, why can't we tell our family members that I'm not actually a 2X? So I think part of what boomers did with millennials is they swung so far the other way without a good like bumper or something that would teach us how to say no and teach millennials like how to relax and restore and rest. And with boomers, I mean, this is also like one could argue the psychology of it. They don't want to deal with anything. They just want to put their head in the sand. They don't want to deal with it. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about this. And my clients now, and kind of what you said at the beginning with like religion, there's such tension between millennials and boomers that so many millennials have cut their boomer parents off in an effort to reset these energetic systems so they can learn to relax. They can learn how to be a recovered people pleaser. They can learn how to say no. They can learn how to put themselves at the center of the story. I also like hate to admit it, the participation trophy and certifications for all of us millennials was a horrible idea because as an adult, we're not used to disappointment. So like we don't know how to handle disappointment. We were super, super praised for things to the point where we weren't encouraged to try things that didn't come naturally to us. So many of us are like incapable of trying something because we don't know how to deal with disappointment or failure. And a lot of that, in my opinion, stems from that participation certificates and trophies. And I remember my parents being upset about it. I'm like, y'all are the ones that are like in charge. Like, we didn't ask to have a participation trophy. Like, somebody decided we needed one, and that somebody is of your generation. So yeah, that played a huge role energetically.
See, I am a huge not a fan of the whole participation trophy bullshit. I mean, it never really impacted me too much because I wasn't really involved in things that had that type of thing. Like, but there was always that like one hippie ass mom in the group who, oh, every kid should get something for just coming. Yeah, because your kid's the one who sucks and you want him to feel special. That's why. We're
all told that we were super snowflakes, and then boomers got mad, and here we are trying to be snowflakes, and boomers are like, you can't do that. That's not the way we do things. Like, my parents gave me agency at a young age, bit them in the ass more. Oh, am I allowed to cuss on here?
Oh God, yes. Okay. Please.
Bit them in the ass multiple times because I would turn around and be like, I'm not comfortable doing that. And I was taught at a young age consent to be able to say no if something made me uncomfortable. And so like that ideology was instilled in me. It bit my parents in the ass, but at least it gave me permission to recognize that like I had a voice. And my parents were definitely like not a fan of the participation trophies. And I definitely was not the best on the teams I was on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, same. But, and my parents were the same way. I mean, my dad taught us from a young age, there's winners and losers. He's like, you don't have to be a winner every time, but he's like, you should try your hardest to be one.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson I put on my kids too. I don't want them to think that they're going to get trophies just for showing up, because that's not teaching people how to live life. That's teaching them how to fail at life, basically. You're basically setting everybody up for failure at that point. That's what you're trying to teach them, because it's just not the way the world works. Just because you show up to work every day, guess what? You're not going to get raises. You're not going to get bonuses. You're not going to get promotions. You have to prove that you are a winner and that you're doing your job to the best of your ability. Then, yes, you'll get all those great things, which that's why I try to teach my kids. Like, and yes, the whole going to school while sick thing. Yeah, I mean, my mom had the famous saying of, you ain't staying home unless you're throwing up or bleeding.
Mine too, 100%.
And I try to instill that in my kids too, because I'm like, you need to go. I'm like, it's school. School is important. You need to go to school every day you can. I'm like, when I was your age, I wanted to go to school. I freaking loved school. Like, I was a nerd, whatever. Like,
I did too. Like, oh, please give me the ibuprofen so I can go. Post-pandemic, I'm super big on people taking care of themselves. You're not feeling well, just stay home. Nobody else needs to get sick. I think that there's responsibility in that. But at the same time, like, it has to be balanced with also making sure when your kids do go to school that they're actually participating and being in school and not just on their tablet or their Chromebook or their phone, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a parenting or school podcast, but this is actually something I want to speak on for a while, because it's my son in the district he's in now that he started in 3 years ago. They didn't give homework. He's in 5th grade finally, and he's just started getting homework, actually.
So
what
research...
the fuck is wrong with that? In my opinion, that is so horrible.
No. There's actually a lot of research that shows homework for kids under 6th grade, actually middle school, is not been shown to actually improve any sort of test scores or any sort of learning. It's not till they get into junior high and you're teaching more difficult concepts that it's actually supportive. So like the no homework thing is district based as well as regionally based. Like the girls that I work with, like their parents are very against homework, which I support up until junior high. And the oldest is in junior high now. And now I'm like, hey, this is where it kind of gets a little bit different. But the point of homework is supposed to be to teach what you didn't understand in school. And if your kid is understanding everything in school and they can do every worksheet, why do they have to do it at home? Like, let them go play. Now, that being said, if your kid's not getting school homework, then if I'm working with you as a family, I'm encouraging playtime. I'm encouraging open-ended play, no iPads, no screens, unless it's like a transition activity from point A to point B. But like in general, there's a big pushback from education scholars that homework at younger ages isn't actually effective for long-term learning.
I mean, I don't know. I got straight A's, but I got homework every night, and I did it. And it in my opinion, it helps reinforce what you learned at school, and it really does. I mean, it sticks to your head more.
I think it depends on how you learn, honestly. But I think it has a lot to do with learning.
It does. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that, because I went to college to be an education major for specialized in biology, but I didn't get far. But it was my second major going for my third associates. I burned out pretty fast.
That's
but and
probably
I know there's
because you were an overachieving, high-achieving millennial in K-12 that you showed up to college and were probably like, yeah, I don't have to do this. F this, I'm out. Like,
well, no, I graduated with 2 associates from my first college.
Okay.
And had a 3.56 GPA throughout the whole thing. And that's mainly only because I failed freaking phys ed class the one semester because I stopped going because I hate phys ed. I was the fat kid. But I failed at my junior year of high school too, and I didn't take it every day in senior year. It sucked. But I hate gym. I hate gym with a passion. Still do. But I mean, yeah, the problem was in the second college, I'd rather go get a little different type of high than the high learning I have. But
again, because you were an overachieving millennial, like high achieving millennial, I swear there's such a correlation between those things.
There is. I mean, but I learned about all the different types of learning techniques there are for kids, and there are those who learn differently. I get that. I mean, not everybody's gonna be like me, the kid that asked for extra credit homework just to have more homework to do because he liked it so much. Not every kid's gonna be like that. And I mean, and 5th grade is middle school where I live for some reason. I can't figure that out, but it is. Yeah. So my son is like, it's a struggle to get him to sit down and do his homework because, you know, every kid these days has ADHD or ADD because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And blame it on whatever the hell you want to blame it on, but it's true. And I mean, it's just to get kids to sit down and do homework when they're not used to it is the problem. That's why they should be used to it I don't think they should be getting it in kindergarten, maybe not in 1st grade even, but 2nd grade on. I think
it was 3rd grade that I remember getting more than just like a worksheet. I remember worksheets in 1st grade only because I remember my teacher and we had to color everything in and you couldn't leave anything paper. Like, so if you wanted something to be white, you still had to color it in white. And I distinctly remember that in Miss Jepson's class. But typically 3rd grade was traditional, or in some places is still traditional. And you're right. If your son's not used to having to do that, and especially if he's getting homework, if he's in middle school and getting homework from different classes, that's a different workload and different expectation. And that's a lot to transition from no homework to suddenly having to like show up to that.
It is. And it's like, how do you teach them this? Like, it's one of those things, and I'm just gonna leave the school topic at that because it's just
we can talk about that any day, another day. Start a different podcast.
I will lose fucking listeners if I do that. But what about the millennial energy do you think makes it so they're so much more open to the spiritual side of things than the boomers?
That's so funny that you asked this, because literally last week we recorded, my co-host is a Gen Xer, And then the 17-year-old I work with does a lot for the podcast. His name is Ace. And so the three of us got on a call together to talk about the generational energies and like how we saw things. And Ace's one question was like, what was your entrance into spirituality and what do you think it is for your generation? So I literally just had this conversation. And my argument for millennials was a couple things. One, most of us were born in the 80s. And when you look at the media available to us in the 90s and early 2000s, it was a little bit more like The Craft. We had more paranormal, ghosty type shows. We had more spirit emphasis. We had Charmed, we had Buffy, we had this like wider range of media that would inspire us to like think about these things. And then I think many of us were not raised in religion. And so we have looked for something. I mean, again, I grew up in California, so like I am very privileged and I recognize my privilege. So me saying not everybody was raised in religion is a reflection of my area. But I think a lot of people started looking to spirituality either because they didn't have religion or they saw their religion as being too restrictive. And my podcasting partner, Lisa, she said for Gen Xers, she would argue a lot of people were too restricted. And so when they got into their 20s and 30s, they started looking outside themselves. And then Ace, the Gen Zer, he said it was exposure on things like TikTok and social media and YouTube and whatnot. And he had gotten into paranormal stuff because of a show on YouTube. One of the guys' name's Cody. I cannot remember the other one, but that was how he had gotten into it. But I think coming back to your question, millennials, I think it was exposure to media because media played a huge role in the upbringing of our childhood of most millennials. And I think it was, this is too restrictive. What's outside this box? We also grew up with like unsolved mysteries. Like, how are you not going to be interested when you hear about aliens?
I was going to say, because that's, well, actually, I think boomers kind of grew up with unsolved mysteries more than we did.
Gen
and
X
I think
did. It was more Gen X.
Yeah, but boomers were the adults when it came out. And I think that makes a difference because it's funny. The guests I have on that are in the boomer, maybe early Gen X ages are the ones that are into Bigfoot, aliens, Loch Ness Monster, all the amazing cryptid side of the world. And then with anybody from like late Gen X to millennials to even younger, it's always more on the spiritual side. It's always, I do Reiki. I'm a psychic. I'm a clairvoyant. I'm a clairaudient. I mean, yeah, I get a mix of all that in every generation, basically. But I can see the pattern kind of that, like the paranormal investigators that are into like aliens and stuff, and they don't care about ghosts are the older ones, and it's awesome because it's like, I'm like, why weren't you my parents? My parents were not into this stuff at all. Like, and you're right. We did grow up with it. I mean, we, as millennials, even we had Ghostbusters, we had Men in Black, we had all these things that guys piqued our interest. I mean,
but we also had it like in kids media. So like on Nickelodeon.
Animorphs. I was just going to say Animorphs. Yeah.
Animorphs. Like so weird on Disney. I cannot remember what the name of the show was on Nickelodeon, but it was like alien pods that had come down. It was the second iteration of a show that had been created in the 70s. It's going to really bother me. I cannot remember. But like at a young age, we were having exposure to aliens and ghosts and paranormal, and it was just part of our media landscape. And it's not as much of the media landscape for such young ages now.
Well, that's not so true now. There's more things out there now about like, and you said it, YouTube and TikTok and all these things that like, because my kids, guess what they watch? Reels on YouTube. Yeah. And okay,
from that perspective, I was thinking more like from the big networks, like from
kids don't watch the big networks anymore.
No, I guess they're not. Yeah.
I don't know any kid who just watches like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network anymore. It's not a thing. Like a lot of people most people don't even have cable anymore nowadays. No. So you can't just go to channel 32 and watch Nickelodeon like I did every day as a kid for 12 hours straight. Like,
why was it also 32 where I grew up? I wonder if it had to do with like whoever our provider was. 28 was ABC Family, that I remember.
No, see that's where it differs. Okay. I think I mean there's other channels for Nickelodeon in other areas. I know that too because I've been on Facebook threads where they compare that like when they were kids in the 90s, and it's different. I'm actually surprised we had the same channel for that even. But I mean it's kids are not. That's the funny thing. There is no such thing as like big network stuff anymore. Like I don't even know what the shows that are on like new shows that are on Fox, CBS, NBC. I don't even know what the hell they are anymore because I don't have cable. I haven't had cable in 3 years, and
I haven't had cable in 10, 15,
well,
12.
I lived with my mom for a while, and
yeah.
she had cable because she's a freaking boom. Yeah, I guess she'd be a boomer. Yeah, she's a boomer, so she can't get rid of cable. Like we try convincing her, like we give you our streaming service logins, just use them. No, I like cable because I like the DVR things. I'm like, it's all on streaming services.
My mom too. Same.
It's a generational thing. Like,
yeah,
it's just like same as my grandma will never get rid of cable because she likes to actually look in the TV guide and see what the hell's on. And I'm like, why? But it's you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's that type of thing. But
100%.
So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we did grow up with it. I mean, I read Animorphs, I read Goosebumps my whole childhood, and they got me into all. They got me. I wasn't really a horror fan even at that age.
Oh, I
should have been because I should have been because of Goosebumps. But then, well, Jason Voorhees scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, so that got me out of horror pretty fast.
That's fair.
But yeah, my friend happened to bring over Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan to a sleepover one night, and I kept waking up and I lived in New York, so I kept waking up and seeing Jason out my window.
Yeah, no, that would have. I'm with you on that one. I really enjoyed horror. I was a Freddy Krueger kid, and then R.L. Stine. I had Fear Street because I'm slightly older than you, and Goosebumps wasn't technically a thing when I was super young. But I had exposure. I mean, I also had a mom that read everything from by Stephen King and Dean Koontz, and let me read that when I was a kid. So I had some exposure.
My dad read Stephen King, but I just didn't have any interest in it. But I regret that now because I started reading his books a few 5-6 years ago, and I haven't read. I don't have time to read anymore, but I used to read his books all the time and loved them. I was reading them in order and everything. Freaking was awesome. It's like a whole new world. But yeah, I mean, I grew up the same way. Like I got into this stuff because of seeing Unsolved Mysteries and seeing. I would watch that type of stuff, and I mean, even X-Files as a kid scared the crap out of me. Like even the theme music scared the crap out of me.
I was okay with X-Files, the theme music to Unsolved Mysteries. My dad loved it. I would start crying when it would come on, and he would either have to not watch it or I would have to go to bed.
It was one of those things where like I literally would be watching like Sunday Night Fox, like Simpsons, Futurama, whatever. And then as soon as the X-Files music hits, I was like, change channel. Because it was so creepy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I ended up watching the whole series like a decade ago and like on Netflix and freaking loving it. But I mean, but my love for the paranormal waned and came through my whole life. So I when I wanted to start my own show, that's what I had to go with because I got back into paranormal big with podcasts. Paranormal podcast is what got me back into it because I was old enough to obviously not freak out about any of it and old enough to start questioning things and being like, all right, wait a minute now. And like seeing the patterns put together. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, this stuff is definitely real. I'm like, I believe a lot of this stuff is actually real.
What's your paranormal experience that gives you the goosebumps that reminds you that it's real?
I don't really have, actually, I am really lacking in experiences personally. That's the funny thing. Because those who want to see, don't see, you know? That's what it is. Those who want to see, don't see. Those who want to experience, don't experience paranormal stuff. That's just the way it goes. It's those who don't want anything to do with it. It's those that are brought up religious and are scared of it that haven't experienced freaking everything because life's not fair. Main lesson there is life's not fair, so that's why these people get to experience everything. But, well, wait a minute. Actually, okay, now I wouldn't be doing my job. I didn't ask. What was your first real experience with the paranormal?
I don't know what my first one was, but my most vivid one. So prior to the experiences I'm about to share, paranormal would be something I would talk about, but I wouldn't talk about having an experience. Now I'm psychic. I talk to spirits all day long. I can tell you like who's behind you right now. I can tell you like what's lit up in your personal bubble / aura. Like I can tell you some stuff about your kiddo that came in. Like I see that stuff all the time. I don't see that as being paranormal. So the story I'm about to share is the first time as an adult I remember something paranormal or what I perceived as being paranormal truly happening. And this was right before the pandemic. I think this was the summer of 2017 or 2018. And I was in Washington State with a friend of mine at the time. Her family had an abandoned home up there, estate that we were going to check out so that they could figure out what they want to do, turn it into something, sell it, etc. And we got there and it was like outside, I want to say Port Angeles. And so like we got in, it was super dark. It's in a rural area, like no lights, nothing. And so we pull up, she'd been to the estate a few times. We can't get in the front door, like fine, whatever. Fast forward to us finally getting in. And we're like, okay, we're going to stay here for the night instead of going into town and finding a hotel. We don't have running water, but that's fine. Oh, we don't have heat either, but we have electricity. That's fine. So we start getting ready for bed and we both were energy workers and we both knew a lot about energy. And she had had some weirder experiences, especially like alien stuff that I have no interest in having alien experiences. I'll be very clear. Like that is not an interest of mine because I have enough of it psychically that like having a physical experience I would probably not recover. So we get ready for bed. We have a weird experience with a bat only later to find out there's no reason that there's a bat in the house, but like whatever. We go to sleep. I go to sleep, I should say. She stayed up half the night dealing with psychic attacks from like the spirits in her family home. The next morning, we both agree we're not going to stay in this house. One, it's too psychically active. She's not going to sleep. Two, not having running water is actually an issue. And three, not having any sort of heat. Or I guess it wasn't the summer because it was definitely cold. Not having any sort of heat is a problem. So we at that point had purchased like air mattresses and a few other things. And so like I'm in the bedroom we slept in. I clean everything up. I stack up all the boxes. We leave. We're the only people that were at this house. We leave. We go do whatever. We come back the next morning and I walk into that room. No one has been in this room. And every time I tell the story, I get head to toe goosebumps, which is like a tall tale sign that like this is real for me. I walk into that room and all the boxes are strewn about. And I yell to her and I go like, hey, did anybody come in? And she's like, no, the contractor said he wasn't able to get here and like nobody else has a key. And I was like, okay, cool. Can you come here? And she's like, what? And I'm like, all the boxes are everywhere. And I was like, I was the last one in here and I stacked them right there. And so I'm science informed. I start looking, are any of the windows open? No windows are open. Are there weird vents like underneath the carpet or like in the closet? Nothing. And we knew there was a spirit in that room that was really angry that we were there. And that was her read on it. My read was a bit like more broad of like, there was definitely an energy of some sort. I stand by to this day that it is really, really hard for spirit to move something in the physical world. I know many people that have experiences, but to me, like the effort it would take a spirit to like move this pen is tremendously large for them not having a body. And for me, I was so freaked out. I was like, I don't want to be in this house anymore. And then that night we decided to take pictures in the dark because that was something she liked to do to see what kind of spirits there were. And this is where it's more psychic and less paranormal to me. Like paranormal, I guess, like has to have a physical component for me. There was this weird room that was like a coal room, except the house was not built at a time that you would have had coal. And I knew there had been trauma there and I just couldn't tell what, but I knew it was with like a young kid or like a late childhood, early teen. And we went they built this beautiful addition for her deceased grandfather who had passed at that point, for him to kind of live in with I think it was like an home care person or something. And I remember walking into this room and she's taking photos and I'm just walking around the room. I wasn't super big on taking the photos. I saw enough with my eyes open. I don't need it to be on my phone. And I got rooted in the middle of the room and I just started channeling this young, I think he was 14. I'd have to go back to my notes. 14-year-old boy named Jacob, telling his entire story of being on the property, not in the current home, but the room that I thought would have been like a good coal room. I guess there had been a structure previously. And when he would get punished by his parents, he would get locked in that room. And I stood in the middle of this addition, just tears streaming down my face. But what was even crazier is my friend was taking photos of me the entire time. And I have a photographic progression of seeing an orb go from like above me all the way down into my throat. And then the pictures afterwards when he left and I could actually move. But at the time, like, I remember saying to her, I can't move and I can't stop crying. And that was what prompted her to start asking, because at that point I'd already started kind of telling the story. That prompted her to like ask more questions to get more of like who this boy was and why is he stuck and what does he need from us. So that house, I would say, was creepy. Definitely had some weird experiences. More recently, I went to the Winchester Mystery House this past summer in San Jose. And that was really fun. I took Ace, the 17-year-old, who has a lot of experience with this stuff after working with me for 4 years. And so like we compared notes throughout the entire thing, and we both saw stuff in the house. I didn't see a ton. I saw like 1 or 2 things, but mostly it was like in the basement that isn't part of the normal tour. It's part of a special tour you can take. And then we asked our tour guide like if he had any crazy stories, and he told us like of one night where they were doing a flashlight tour, and like how they had heard something and then there was nobody there. But as he told it, Ace and I both like broke out in like massive goose flesh or goose pimples, and we both looked at each other and we're like, well, that was real. So like I visited places that are considered super haunted. I guess I don't see it as being paranormal though, because again, I think I need like the physical component.
Oh, see, it is all paranormal though, because paranormal is the science of the unexplained, and it's all unexplainable. So
yeah, that's fair.
I mean, because I'm a science-minded person too. That's why it's funny I got into the paranormal, because I want science I couldn't explain. That's what made me more interested in. That's what paranormal is. It's just things you can't explain yet. Yes, we'll get there someday. Hopefully, if the world's not destroyed by then, we'll get there someday. But
I can hope. I'd love to be a part of like the research teams that like design those research experiments. I say that all the time. I'm like, I could design like one of the best psychic experiments if you gave me like the time and the money, but like I'm not gonna like think about it until someone wants to pay me.
To do stuff like that, you gotta get in with the government deep and be like a
which they don't agent. Want me. I've looked a little bit at different government energies, and I've talked to a few different people that were part of like remote viewings for the government, and they just look at me and they're like, they don't want you. And I'm like, that's cool. That's great. That's really great. Thanks, guys. They're like, it has nothing to do with the skill. I'm like, no, I know that. I'm very aware of that.
Gotta love the government. You gotta love it. Not really, but you gotta. Or they'll make it. But see, that's the thing. Like, it is part of the paranormal, though. It really is, because I mean, I live in a possessed house, and it's part of the paranormal.
Okay, is that what it is? Because like there's energies around you, and I like keep wanting to ask where you live, but I don't know if you like keep that close to the chest because you do a podcast. But there's definitely like some interesting energies.
Oh yeah, it's a possessed house. I mean, it's 100% possessed house, and trust me, you're not the first person to come on the show and be like, I sense things. I'm like, trust me, I know.
You're like, no, I live it.
I mean, but that's the thing. They don't disturb us. They don't bother us. They're just they're just there. They're just there. They're residents that don't pay rent. But
super fun.
So I gotta ask you this question, because I love asking any psychic this question. Do you think that anybody can be psychic if they practice enough?
Yes,
okay, that's the fastest answer ever.
I have sat in I have led a meditation with several hundred people in the room, teaching them how to look at energy. And the majority of people can see stuff. It's a matter of just being prompted and being taught. It's a skill everyone possesses. It gets turned off around 8 when we're taught not to imagine anymore, but it's not that different from your imagination muscle. Like if you brought your kiddo back, I could walk them through it in a couple seconds. I could probably walk you through it as well, but like you might be slightly more primed and or skeptical given your interest in history.
See, I feel like I'd be primed for it, but I just feel like I don't know.
Now, I think the better question is everybody ready and prepared to be psychic? Absolutely not. We don't live in Atlantis for a reason. Like there's a reason that it doesn't exist yet, but I think it's possible.
I mean, I think everybody, well, see, that's the thing. I don't think everybody can be psychic. I think everybody has their own special abilities that they can awaken, but it's not everybody's psychic. I think there's psychics, there's clairvoyants.
Define psychic, because for me, psychic's the umbrella term that houses things like clairvoyance, clairaudience, mediums, channelers, most energy workers, healers.
I guess you could put all those under psychic in a way, but I don't know. To me, psychic is more just traditional 90s style, like someone who could basically read minds, read energy.
So be telepathic.
I mean, in a way, I basically think being a psychic is being telepathic. I mean, but I think having telekinetic abilities is a whole nother thing. Like I think it's a different realm.
I think telekinesis should fall under psychic, but I think it's a very niche, small part of it. Versus telepathic or like clairvoyance, I would say, is actually the biggest one. But we're taught to filter that out. And like, if you look at certain mental health diagnoses, like autism's the best example. Many people that have been diagnosed with autism have less visual filters. And I can say this with authority because I went through the training program with someone that was autistic and quite in the realm when it was more of the spectrum, like considered quite not Asperger's, but actually considered autistic when those were words we were using. And she and I had a conversation one day and she's like, no, I see stuff all the time. I don't feel like I have the filter to tell me what's not actually here. And so I think clairvoyance is probably the most popular because I think we have to train ourselves to cut out so much. We already know we train ourselves to not see certain visual stimuli that I think from a young age we're taught how to not notice things that we can't actually touch.
Yeah, I mean, all right, I'll put it this way, and this will be the final way I'm going to say it, I think. But we can call psychic, I'm sorry, did I scare you, Snickers? But we can call psychic a science overall, and all these other names are different departments of science. I mean, your biology, your ecology, your chemistry, your physics, it's all basically the same thing. It's all just different groups of science.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And I think the Parapsychology Association would probably agree with you as well. Because part of their mission is to like make it into more of a science. So I would agree with that.
Because I mean, trust me, I've had plenty of people on here who are like, I'm clairaudient. I'm not a psychic. I am clairaudient. I'm like, okay, if you say so. Whatever you want to say.
This is where I just ask people to define their terms because people are like, well, you're not a medium. I'm like, define what a medium is. Tell me what you're asking for. And I will tell you if that's something I can achieve. And they'll be like somebody that talks to the dead. I'm like, okay, well, I can do that. So by your definition, I am technically a medium. I do not identify as one, but it is how you would identify me. And they're like, well, this is what I mean. And so that's where I think people have to like define their terms. So somebody that says they're clairaudient, but not psychic, either doesn't want to use that label. Like I don't use psychic 90% of my life because it has such a stigma with it, which is why like I have all the other words in my bios. But I think it just depends someone's experience with language. Language is also fascinating. Linguistics, energetics of linguistics is fascinating as well.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, look at they always say words have power when it comes to like spells and stuff. So linguistics plays a huge part in that. And all right, and here I got to drop this dad joke because I've been sitting on it for the last 2 minutes. See, if someone asks me what medium is, I'm just going to say not raw, not well done, kind of in the middle, you know? I almost do a spit take.
You did. That's a good dad joke. I'm on board with it. I also love dad jokes. I think they're hysterical, but that is a good one. Like I'm on board.
Oh, you didn't like that either, huh, Six? But yeah, I don't know. I was sitting on that for 2 minutes. I'm like, I'm getting this fucking joke out. I swear to God.
And you got me there, and you almost had me do a spit take.
Damn it! Second too late. But all right. Well, and speaking of your bio. There's something in there that I have never heard of, and I'm dying to know what it means. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm going to ask, but what is an energetic ethnographer, if I pronounced that right?
Ethnographer. That is a great question, and it is there partly to get people to ask that question. So
I figured.
My most recent business coach, we were doing an overhaul of my website, and I kept saying, I need you to have a session with me. And she kept putting it off. And finally, I was like, here's the link. Please go book right now. It's on me. It's my gift to you. Anybody that works with me needs to have a session with me because you need to understand what I do. So we have that session and we're done. And she's like, you do not know how to sell yourself. She's like, if you had told me all the things you were going to look at, if you had told me that you were going to look at agreements, you were going to look at colors, you were going to look at patterns, you were going to look at all these different things, I would have signed up for that session immediately, but all you kept saying was you need to have a session with me. So we brainstormed and I came up with energetic ethnographer because it marries my academia and my intuitive training. So an ethnographer is someone that goes and studies the culture. So like Margaret Mead is a really popular one that most people are aware of. Malinowski.
I've heard that name.
Margaret Mead studied young women in Samoa. Coming of age in Samoa is a really popular ethnography, and Margaret Mead was one of the first female ethnographers, and she went and studied young teen culture. Later turned out a lot of them just blatantly lied to her, but essentially an ethnographer goes and studies the culture in present time versus an archaeologist that's going to look at culture through the lens of history and archaeological artifacts and evidence. So when we were talking about like essentially what I do is I am looking at your energy and I'm looking at the culture, social and society of who you are in your little microcosm in most of my sessions. So an energetic ethnographer is someone that's incorporating the energetics of that person's entire story. Now, is that what I do in every session? Absolutely not. But it makes it unique enough that it gets people to ask questions. And then I can go into, yes, I can look at relationships. Yes, I can look at your past lives or your spirit guides or ancestral information or career or geography or all these other things. But like it's intended to do what you did, which was ask a question.
All right, it makes sense. And I never heard the term before, so I had to.
I made it up. I made it up and then had to like defend myself to my archaeology mentor. When I decided to do this work, I had to come out to 2 scholars, one of whom is an old school archaeologist. And when you think of an archaeologist that's out there in the dirt, digging around and like brushing off a tool or something, or like looking at a bunch of shards from pottery, that is my archaeology mentor. And I had to sit with him and basically say, so just so you know, like I do psychic work. And it was the craziest conversation I had had with anybody at that point. The other scholar I had to come out to was like completely fine. But when I decided to come up with energetic ethnographer, I kind of had to be prepared to defend myself in academia to explain like why I was using this language. And it hasn't really come up outside of him, but it's an academic term for sure.
All right, makes sense. And I mean, well, before I let you go, as soon as I saw your profile, I was like, okay, I got to ask this question at the end of the show, and I'm gonna ask this question. What are your top 5 Nickelodeon shows? Because I have to ask that question.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Now, do you want like from childhood, or do you want across space and time?
Space and.
Okay, across space and time. First and foremost, Clarissa Explains It All. It was tremendous for me as a child. It was a great show, but also in kids media culture, it actually showed that gearing shows towards young girls was going to be prosperous and financially viable. Number 2 would be Hey Dude, because like who did not have a crush on somebody in that cast? And if you didn't, then I don't know you, but like everybody in that cast was amazing. Number 3 is more contemporary and actually is my current favorite Nickelodeon show, even though it's not airing anymore, which is iCarly, which also was super groundbreaking. And I really felt like iCarly did so much both for technology and media, but also for kids to learn how to be what we now call content creators. And maybe that wasn't the best thing, but at the time it was a great show. And also we just ignore the fact that Dan Schneider was a part of it. I would throw in Rugrats, even though I'm no longer into cartoons, but I just always thought it was like a great, fun cartoon, and like seeing the world from like the floor and everything. It was also like a remarkable show. And then I think my final choice would have to be, I'm torn. I kind of want to go with Ren and Stimpy, but I also want to go with Salute Your Shorts, and I want to go with Pete and Pete. So I think I'll just go with Salute Your Shorts, mostly because that theme song is now stuck in my head.
See, Rugrats is timeless.
It is.
They ruined it. They ruined it by redoing the animation and making it horrible.
Yes.
But Rugrats is timeless. I watched it with my daughter for many years, so it's timeless. That's always been one of my favorites since I was a kid. I think it teaches kids a lot too, though, about how not to be. So
yeah, I would agree.
As far as Hey Dude goes, before my time, never watched one full episode of it.
Okay, that's fair.
Same as Salute Your Shorts, but
you might enjoy Salute Your Shorts even now. Wait, did you watch You Can't Do That on Television?
Before my time.
Okay, also Canadian, just run on Nickelodeon, but it was a Canadian show. Alanis Morissette.
Yeah. See, no, I was a '90s Nickelodeon kid, so
yeah.
Ren Stimpy, I mean, yeah, play with your log. Yeah, I'm all down for that. But
Ren and Stimpy is interesting because prior to TNT doing an updated season of it, it was so successful, and they actually decided to take it on because scatology with kids, like the poops and farts and bathroom humor, is so popular with kids. That's actually why it was allowed to air, but also the president at the time had less strict rules about what he accepted for Nickelodeon.
Oh God, that is one of the original version is one of the dirtiest shows you ever see on TV.
Yeah.
And my dad let me watch it when I was a young kid, and I'm sure he got the jokes, but he was just like, man, they don't get it.
But that was the beauty of Nickelodeon. That's what Nickelodeon, just like Sesame Street, did, which was grab the kids audience or grab your kids as your main audience, but also throw in a few jokes. So if parents are watching, they can be okay with it.
Exactly. I mean, and I think I see nothing wrong with that. Rugrats did too. I mean, there's tons of examples, tons. I can go through a list of them for God's sake. But top 5 for me. I mean, okay, start in the beginning. Rugrats and Doug, top 2 favorites when I was a kid.
Beautiful. Doug was the first, if I recall correctly, it was the first Nicktoon that was animated in-house.
Yep. And as I got older, I will throw Hey Arnold in there because it was amazing. And then I'm going to jump a little here and throw Fairly Odd Parents in there because that got me my interest in the Fae and the paranormal thing. So I love Fairly Odd Parents. Fifth one's hard.
Wait, did you watch Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I nope. Turned that off as soon as it came on. Nope.
And then does that mean you were too young for Snick in general? Saturday Night
No,
Nickelodeon?
I watched all that. I watched Kenan and Kel. When Are You Afraid of the Dark came on, I turned it off because I wasn't a horror fan.
Yep.
I was too young when it was on. I wasn't a horror fan. But I mean, the fifth one I'm kind of tied between. Actually, no. Fifth one's Rocket Power. There's no tie there. That's Rocket Power.
So all cartoons for you. All cartoons.
I mean, I loved Kenan and Kel. I liked all that to some degree, but it just
also a Dan Schneider show.
I mean, we ignore the foot fetish guy, but
we really have to separate author from art sometimes, and
exactly.
Dan Schneider is where we separate the author from the work he did.
Hashtag P Diddy, but yes, but I mean, yeah, and I mean, there's I grew up in the prime decade and a half for Nicktoons.
Yeah,
I did. I mean,
that was when their focus was cartoons and young boys. That they had shifted into cartoons in the early 90s with the focus of one, creating in-house content because they had stopped borrowing from Canada and Asia, and two, to recapture young boys that they were losing to Cartoon Network.
Yep, and it worked for me at least because I hate Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon, you're gonna die for me with SpongeBob. I hated SpongeBob with a passion.
Fair. I was never a big fan of SpongeBob. I don't hate it. When I taught kids media culture, they were not allowed to write about Rugrats or iCarly because Rugrats I didn't want to read about, and iCarly I knew more than them. And the one student that didn't adhere to that ended up failing their project because I was like, here's all the things you got wrong. This is why I told you not to use this media piece.
Yeah, when Nickelodeon started doing more like live action shows like Drake and Josh and Larry Carly and stuff like that, they lost me. They lost me, and I was just like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm like, Drake and Josh is funny for a hot second, but I'm done.
It goes Drake and Josh, and then Zoe 101, then iCarly, then Victorious, then Sam and Cat, and sideways to that you had Kenan and Kel, all that, and the Amanda Show.
And I mean, I watched all those with a lot. I watched all those a lot. Kenan and Kel is the best of them all, obviously. And Adventures of Pete and Pete, I watched that. I love that show. But
that was like such a weird show, and I would encourage you to watch it with your kids. Like, pick an episode and see how your kids respond to it, because I would show that in Pee Wee Herman, and contemporary kids could not understand why it was so funny.
I mean, I don't know if I can understand why it's funny nowadays either, but I just enjoy it. It was what was on. That's the thing.
Yeah.
When we were kids, it was whatever the hell was on the TV. We couldn't choose what to watch usually unless we had VHS tapes, and eventually in the mid 90s, like once I started getting those like orange tapes of Rugrats and shit, I'd watch that all the time. But it just I don't know. It's just kids media today is horrible compared to what it was. That's gonna be my final statement for today.
Love it. Here for it.
I could do a 5-hour segment on that, for fuck's sake. I could do a TED talk on that, for God. I could do a TED talk on that for 5 days straight. But it has been a pleasure talking to you, Cyndi. Where can people find you if they want to see what you do, if they want to hear your podcast? Please tell people where they can find you.
Well, Jeremy, thank you for having me on, because this has been super fun, and I know it's a little bit left of your normal content, but I appreciate you going down those rabbit holes with me, because I love them.
My listeners are used to my rabbit holes by now, so they'll be
Oh,
fine.
good. You can find me on my website, intothenknown.com, and there you can find out what I do. You can find out how I work. There's links to the podcast. The podcast title is Into the Known. And then I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball. The Instagram handle is Energetic Ethnographer, E-N-E, I have to spell this out, EnerETHNOGRAPHER. I know. I changed it for a reason.
I will post that in the description for all you listeners, so you don't have to rewind and listen to the spelling 5 times.
So sorry. Or you can go on to intuitivetarotacademy.com, or that's the Instagram handle as well, because I do run a tarot academy as well, which we didn't even get into.
But all my listeners, you know where you can find me, besides watching Nickelodeon. You know where you can find me. And if you don't by now, shame on you and your shorts. But check out the outro. It's all there for listeners, as you know. And for watchers, it's been on the screen the whole time for this last hour and 8 minutes, hour and 9 minutes now. Come on. But man, I want to thank you one more time, Cyndi, because it's been an amazing hour talk. I freaking enjoyed the hell out of this. So literally, that hour flew by so fast. I'm like, oh my God, I literally only smoked 2 cigarettes during this hour. Usually I smoke like 3, or 4. So Jesus,
I'm good for you quitting if that's what you're trying.
Should be, but I'm not. But and thank you everybody for listening and watching. And Lord Kavid Abdul says, thank you for your spiritual assistance.
Awesome.
But in the words of a famous man, here it goes.
Listen, here's the truth. If it's not something you love to do, automation is mandatory. You didn't start your podcast to spend hours editing clips. You started it to create, connect, and grow your audience. But here's the problem. Every other platform works with video podcasts, and manual editing eats up your most valuable asset, your time. That's where Opus Clip changes everything. Upload your video, and Opus Clip will automatically find the gold nugget moments, auto-clip the captions for the best parts, perfect for TikTok, Reels, and Shorts. 1 hour-long episode becomes 10, 20, even 30 viral-ready clips in minutes. The tool even predicts each clip's viral potential, so you know exactly what to post. No more tenuous editing, no more wasted hours, just you staying in the place that you love to be, creating content that matters. Head to podnationopus.com for your free trial and get back to doing what you do best. Stop editing and start creating now.
You can find me on Facebook as Jeremy Bryant, or you can find me as Uncensored, Unapologetic, and Untamed UQ Podcast Collective Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter and the Instagram as @JuggaloBastard, or should I say X now. And you can find me on TikTok as @JuggaloBastard Podcast. You can also find me on YouTube as Paranormal the New Normal. And you can also find me streaming on YouTube as Blind Knowledge Network, because all knowledge is blind until they admit Bigfoot exists.